Okay, I've got some feedback then for Gatekeeper Infinity. I just did a video on how much time Gatekeeper Infinity takes. So if you haven't seen that video, I'll link it in the description below. What I did is quite a little funny video on that one. But I just wanted to kind of free chat overall about the game. I'm probably going to do one more video after this one around where I think the characters sit in terms of best to worst. So I'll probably do that, and then I won't do any more videos, I don't think, on Gatekeeper Infinity until the game gets an update. So in terms of like changes and feedback, so obviously, as I said in that other video, I did mention around the speed, and I do think that that is something that the game does need to work on. A lot of other roguelikes that I play at the moment do have that kind of 20 to 30 minute window, and then they have the endless mode on it. So Gatekeeper doesn't really have a specific mode at the moment. It's just one mode. You can check out every 10 stages. You can essentially kind of end the run there, like legitly, but there's no like official sort of 20 to 30 minute run that you can do at the moment. And to be fair, it is in its early stages, so I don't want to give the game too much flack for that. I was potentially going to do another video on this, but I don't think I'm going to do that now. But I might do in the future, but it is warranted. Is the stun is so overpowered on this game, like heavily reliant. We're not just talking about Bastion, the fourth character that has a lot of stun. We're just genuinely talking about stun in general. If you pick up the rune to do stun, which is 10% base and then 5% every level you get it, if you get it to about 20-25%, and you've got any sort of attack speed or cooldown reduction to keep firing off your spells, you're pretty much going to be able to just perma stun everything, which is just insane. So not a big fan of like the stunning mechanic, like the reliance on it. It almost feels like if you don't play it, you're just making the game so much harder than it needs to be, because stun is just so good in comparison to everything else. So I do think there should be some sort of diminishing return, or maybe the cost to actually upgrade stun is maybe a bit higher. Just something that kind of trades it off a little bit, because at the moment it feels like pretty much every character you just kind of want to gravitate towards stun, and I just think that's a bit too overpowered. Next up, so third feedback is, I think elemental damage does seem a bit weak first, like the cost for it, and it's not effective for the amount of damage that you're getting. So there are a couple of abilities that do have elemental assigned to them. So for instance, Pandora's ultimate has it, and Hybrid's abilities. I think his second ability definitely has. I'm not too sure about his ultimate. And so elemental only really scales off of the items that you get, but it doesn't feel anywhere near as strong as just raw damage and crit. So I do think it would be nice to see a significant buff to element and elemental there, and that does seem a bit weak. I think it'd be good to see achievements, so that's always nice, something to strive for, something to work for. I mean, unlocking 2 characters is great. Obviously getting the Omni Stones and then going back to the menu and kind of breaking them to get new abilities, I mean, it's okay. It does make it a bit easy. Like within a couple of runs, you can pretty much use your Omni Stones to break all of the skills open pretty quickly. So that is given to you quite quickly with little to no effort, to be honest. But again, that's just personal preference, and these things could change over the course of the game's lifespan for sure. So next up then is individual breakdown of abilities and runes rather than just the total. So this is just a personal preference. If you've played Death Must Die, that's really good at breaking down the damage that every single ability that you have has done, and also Vampire Survivors is quite good at doing that too. So I'm a big fan of the breakdown of the individual skills and abilities that you're using, just so that you kind of get a bit of an idea of what is kind of doing good damage. And I think that'd be kind of fairly useful for the developers as well, to kind of gauge when people obviously post their monster runs, what's kind of probably overperforming than what they'd like. So again, may not be easy to implement, but something I think it'd be nice. More ability choices for characters, i.e. more options on skill up. So yeah, when you play like 20 minutes till dawn, you have 2 different options that you can select. Now, I think you can always have all of them. So, you get an ability, you can select either one, and then you obviously get the final version of that. I do think in this game specifically, it'd be quite nice to say, for example, if we think about like hybrid, and she has like a different, auto attack, rather than it just being like, more damage or more attack speed or something, maybe have it so that it's like less damage, but then it does, multiple shots, or like a cone of shots, or it only does one shot and it's a bit longer, but it's almost like a shotgun, stuff like that, where you can kind of pick different skills. I think it would really keep the characters interesting. And so that, you just get so much more replayability from them, rather than once you've kind of played a character, you've leveled them up, you know what they do, and there's not really a lot of diversion. And I know, obviously, if you do have multiple options, mostly people just gravitate towards whatever does the most damage. So it's always a bit of a tough balance, but I still think having options there is better than having no options. So just a little bit of thought there in terms of what it could do there. And then finally, this was a personal preference, was a tooltip that shows what skills benefits from elemental, specifically does an elemental only buff rune. So yeah, me and a couple of friends have really played the game, for a good 16 to 20 hours roughly, which I think is fairly competent amount of time. And we've just noticed that specifically, it just feels like when you're upgrading your elemental damage, it does not feel like it's doing anything. It's not increasing. And so I just think a tooltip that specifically states the skills on your characters and the runes that you're providing absolutely provide elemental. 'Cause there are obviously some skills that obviously mention it, but it just doesn't feel like that's an increase, or you're not quite sure if elemental does work that. So it's just like a personal preference there, that I think would be quite cool. So look, that's kind of all the ones that I could think of. Let me know in the comments below if you agree with these, if you disagree, if you had any other thoughts. If the developer sees these, like, great. I hope that these kind of suggestions give you a little bit more. And again, it might be on the roadmap. And I have looked over the roadmap that come out, and I've tried to not say like more characters or stuff like that, because we know that they're coming. They've actually released that in the roadmap. So try to think about a few things that maybe haven't been mentioned, specifically through Steam. I haven't looked at like Discord servers or anything like that. So again, some of these things might be on the developer's mind, and if that is, then that's absolutely great. So yeah, it was just a little bit of a kind of a free talk on this one, just to kind of get out my thoughts on that. And as I say, I'll probably do another video that will come out this week, around where I think the characters stack up in terms of best to worst, as I said earlier. So do keep an eye out for that. But other than that, I think this one is all wrapped up, guys. So appreciate your time, and I'll see you next one. Peace.